Everybody. Welcome back to the JERRY1 Podcast. This is episode number 6, and I'm your host, Nick Felice. And this is recording on Monday, August 24th, 2020. You're watching this on Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. And we got a big show on hand today. We're going to discuss week 4 in JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball. We are now on to week 5 of JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball. Remember, there's only 7 weeks in the regular season. Top 4 make the playoffs. 5th through 8th place make the Constellation Tournament. We'll talk a little bit about that. Is Paul the favorite in fantasy baseball right now? He's 4-0, kind of under the radar somehow. He's like the JERRY1 GOAT. He's never had a lot of success in baseball in 1 year that he had in 2018. But Paul has come out hot. He's become the 3rd ever team to start a season off 4-0. Is he the favorite? We'll get into that. What's up with Sam? Sam's struggling. We'll see if we can fix his team out. He's 2-2, still in the hunt, but 2 last place scoring finishes the last 2 weeks. And Kurt's success after these trades that he made with Blake and with Fletch. We'll talk about Kurt's team, but we have a special guest on today. It is my good college friend Larry Morris is coming on the show today. He's going to talk about his 2-2 team. We'll see what his take on the season is so far. He had a big win last week in week 4. We'll talk to him about fantasy basketball a little bit. He was one of those 4 teams that was in the semifinals, and he was up in the semifinals. It was just 4 days ago before the season got cut short. We'll talk to Larry about that. Larry Morris on the show today. And Larry's another one of those teams, injury bug has gotten to him in fantasy baseball. Injury bug, I hear you. The coronavirus is definitely having an effect on fantasy baseball. So we'll get into that a little bit today. Talk about the injuries. We'll see what we can do here. It's tough. I wish the best for everyone. If you haven't had the injury bug, you're good. But I'm one of those teams. Kluber, Verlander, gone. So that's episode 6. We're going to get right into it now. Larry's on the show. Week 5 fantasy baseball. Episode 6 starting right now. Larry's going to come on in a second, but first let's recap week 4 of fantasy baseball. As you see, somewhere on the screen, there's a new graphic I got. It is the look of the standings in fantasy baseball. It's going to be the standings in any fantasies, but here's your standings. As you see those standings, wherever they are, right here, I don't know how it's going to be placed, but they're on the screen right now. And right now, Paul, you see Paul at the top. That's definitely an eye catcher. He's 4-0. He is the 3rd ever team in fantasy baseball history to start 4-0 to a season. Myself and Sam Shields back in the inaugural season 2018 did that. Paul's off to a great start. When I really look at those playoffs, I see a very, it's a big headline playoffs. You got the rematch of last year's finals between me and Johnny on one side of the semifinals. And the other side of the semifinals is Matt and Paul, JERRY1 GOATs. So, that's a playoffs I'm for with right now. The season just ended right now, but obviously because I'm in it. But that's the playoffs right now. As we talk about week 4, you see some of the records on there. Johnny, game of the week was Johnny versus Matt. Johnny holding on against Matt. Johnny's 3-1. Matt's 2-2. Matt, a couple weekends, he's tried to come back against teams like Kirk and Johnny, but he's fallen short. Luckily for Matt, he's still got the points. Right now, he's got the points tiebreaker over the other 4 2-2 teams, so that's why he's in the playoffs right now with 3 weeks to go. Fletch and Andrew, JERRY1 newbies, both of them blew 14-point leads on Sunday in week 4. Larry came back to beat Andrew. Larry, who our guest is today, came back to beat Andrew down 14 on Sunday to get to 2-2. And Jack came back to beat Fletch on Sunday down 14 points to beat 2-2. Those were 2 big matchups right there. They were both 1-2 teams. All 4 teams wanted to get to 2-2 on the season. Larry and Jack were the 2 teams that got to it. Andrew and Fletch, newbies in JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball, lost. So where do these teams go? I mean, this is a Fletch team. Terrible week 2. But he had a great week 3, best scoring team. He was the second time in JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball where a team scored the least amount of points in week 2. Well, not week 2, but least amount of points in 1 week, and then scored the next amount of points the very following week. And Fletch did that in week 2 to week 3. And obviously Fletch won in week 3. And he was looking really good. He was up there to start week 4 real hot against Jack. And he blew it on the final day. It's tough for Fletch and Andrew to bounce back from this because there's only 3 weeks left. And they're both 1-3. And there's not a lot of time. And they're new to the game, new to this league. We'll see what happens with those 2. I think Jack and Larry, we'll see if they take advantage of this. We'll see what they do. We're going to get Larry's take here in a second. But other games, 4-0. Paul, he beat Blake. Blake now 1-3. Blake was the number 1 seed last year. I don't know if I like his chances going forward in making it back to the playoffs. It's been too inconsistent for the Blake team this year. Paul, on the other hand, like his chances to get to the playoffs. He's the first team to 4 wins, and he's guaranteed an over 500 season already through 4 games with a 7-week regular season. So shortened season. Paul taking advantage of it. Kurt beat Sam. Kurt just seems to have Sam's number. Sam, we just said it earlier before the theme song, that Sam has scored the least amount of points for the last 2 weeks. Sam had never done that in his JERRY1 Fantasy Sports career in the regular season in his 4 previous seasons. So that was 71 weeks of the regular season. Sam did not finish last in scoring. Now he's done it 2 weeks in a row. This Sam team's struggling right now, but it's still Sam Shields. I think he can turn this thing around. Kurt, on the other hand, he's the one that's made moves. He's the one that's improving, and he's got an outside chance at the playoffs. I think he's got a really good chance. I mean, when you think about these playoffs, you look at the standing right here. You think about it, you think, well, you got Johnny and me who were good last year. Paul has come on the scene this year and become good because Paul is always good at fantasy sports. Matt, you like his chances, bigger name. He's in the playoffs right now. He's got the points. But then there's Sam and there's Kurt. I think people, I don't want to say me, but I think people would be more nervous if Sam and Kurt got into the playoffs rather than Jack and Larry. Even though Jack made a run to the finals in the first season, 2018, but he was also a 5 seed. I know I was a 5 seed last year, but it's just, I think when you're comparing all the 2-2 teams, I think people would rather see Larry and Jack in the playoffs than they would Sam and Kurt because they can make more damage. They could be a threat if they get the chance in the playoffs. We'll see where all these 2-2 teams go forward. We're going to talk about week 5 in a bit. And then the last game was just I beat Josh. Josh has now lost 14 of his last 15 in this league. Josh is a good team. He's up there and scoring. He's just not getting a lot of luck on his side. It's not that he's having unlucky weeks. He's just scoring, but he's not winning. He's playing hot teams at the wrong time, I guess we could say. And this Josh team, feel for him. 1-3. Him, Blake, Andrew, and Fletch, all 1-3. If I had to pick one to put money, to put some stock in, if I want to make a run towards the playoffs as a 1-3 team, I'm probably putting my money in Fletch, just because Fletch, for a little bit of their time there in these 4 weeks, week 3 and most of week 4, he's better than all 4 of those 1-3 teams have been all season. So if I had to put money on someone, I'll put money on Fletch. But 1-3, you got to win now. We'll talk about week 5 in a second. Andrew and Blake have a big game this week. We'll see what happens. But we have made it to this point of the show where we're going to have our conversation with Larry. Here is that conversation with Larry. We got a two-time JERRY1 fantasy basketball playoff team here. He is in his fourth season in JERRY1 fantasy sports. My good college friend, Larry Morris. How's it going, Larry?
Doing great. How you doing, Nick?
Not bad, not bad. You got a big win yesterday. I saw in fantasy baseball had to come back.
Yeah, big win. It was much needed win. Needed that definitely to get back to 500. Struggling a little bit in the week, but definitely a huge win.
Okay, we'll get on your team in a second, but where are you coming from right now?
Right now, I'm in beautiful upstate South Carolina. Just a few minutes up the road from Clemson University, actually.
Really?
Yep, my first fall here in the deep South, and of course, there's no real college football going on. First thing I learned when I get here is everybody down here takes college football real seriously. Got so excited, and of course, all this is going on, so I can't experience my first, fall in the South with some college football. A little disappointed about that.
Today was a big day in New York. We got the word that 3 high school sports can start September 21st: soccer, golf, and girls tennis. So I'll be getting back to work here too. What's that?
Luckily, so far down here, they said they're gonna play, but still can't go tailgating, which that's what I was looking forward to.
Yeah, and you're originally from Watkins?
Yep, Watkins Glen, New York.
And you went to Keuka, and you lived in Seneca Falls for a little bit there.
I was in Seneca Falls for a little bit. Still missed it up there a little bit. It was a nice little town, but now I'm here in the South.
Yes, you are. And you're in your second year in fantasy baseball here in JERRY1. And like you said, or I said, you came back yesterday against you played Andrew Lucchesi, a Seneca Falls kid. You had to come back from down 14 going into Sunday. You got that big win. You're 7th in scoring right now through 4 weeks. Only a 7-week regular season. You're 2-2. What are your thoughts on your season so far and going forward?
Well, like I said, that coming back from that 14 down yesterday, big win is really important to get my team back to 500. It was a real tough week. Andrew got a big start on me on Wednesday. He went up 8. Well, he had 66 points on me on Wednesday to my 7. Slowly just kept chipping my way back. Friday had a big game. Jose Aburru, Elijah Hernandez, Danny Duffy, they all came up big. Got 81 points on Friday. And then yesterday had Yu Darvish starting on the mound. That's all I needed.
Look at you prepared. I love a guy who loves stats like I do. You made some news today. So you're in the draft. You had the snake. You had the end of the first round and the start of the second round in the snake draft. You took Steven Strasburg at 12, and you took Alex Bregman at 13. Today you cut Steven Strasburg because of his injury, and I just saw today actually on Alex Bregman that he is out for the next 3 weeks at least, which would be the end of the regular season or fantasy league. And you got guys like Yu Darvish, who's really stepped up. Just first, let's talk about what the impact of your top 2 picks getting hurt like that.
Well, yeah, it's been the biggest problem with my season this year has been injuries. Like you said, on my first round pick in Steven Strasburg, played a grand total of 2 games for me this season. Got -1, injured, came back -8, and then to come find out tomorrow, found out yesterday actually that he has getting surgery done this Wednesday, and then he'll be out until at least spring training. So he got my first round pick, got me a grand total of -9 points on the season. Huge blow to the team. Yeah. And then, of course, Steven Strasburg, 12th overall pick, the 13th overall pick, and Alex Bregman, he's out for 3 weeks now too. That's the biggest problem I've had this season is just injuries. There was one point I've had 4 players that were all on the IL.
Yes, and there's only 2 spots in our league, and I've been dealing with injuries too. It's the fact that I'm 3-1, you're 2-2 with the injuries we both have had, because I've lost Verlander and Kluber. My rotation's pretty bad right now pitching, but I'm making pickups, trying to survive. I've gotten lucky a little bit. Had a good week last week. Yeah, that's absolutely. And then Yu Darvish, you got him 84th overall. He's really stepped up. Had a bad first start, but he's got 127 fantasy points on the season, which is a 21.2 average. He's right now the third best starter. What are your thoughts on you, Darvish, stepping up for like Strasburg going down, stuff like that?
Couldn't be happier with the results of Yu Darvish. Like I said yesterday, going into that game, down 14 points, I knew I had Yu Darvish playing that game. Actually, yesterday, driving down the road about noon, I had Maggie take my phone, make sure Yu Darvish was starting because, as long as I had him going, huge steal in the draft, I feel like, at the 84th overall pick. He, like you said, he did have trouble in his first game against the Brewers back in July. But since then, he's been 5-0 since after getting that initial loss. Got a 1.7 ERA. Just couldn't be happier with the results he's gotten me since of course, losing Steven Strasburg and all my other top picks.
Yeah, maybe it was just first game jitters, I guess. It might have been against the Brewers. Because he's really been killing it, and it's been a bounce back year for him. And then
definitely. I mean, the lowest game since that first game, the lowest points he's had is 19. Everything else, he's been, high 20s, over 30. Been really, really happy with the results he's put up.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jose Abreu. He was actually the AL Player of the Week this week. He's got 110 fantasy points on the season. He had 63 for you last week against Andrew. By far the most points anyone put up last week. Jose Abreu really stepped up for you last week. What are your thoughts on him?
Oh, like you said, 63 points last week. I mean, he had 6 home runs just in the weekend series versus the Cubs. Couldn't be more happy with the results he's done. Huge part in, getting that comeback win this past week against Andrew to be able to go back to 500. Couldn't be happier with everything he's doing, getting big home runs, RBIs, everything.
Yeah, so you're 2-2 now. You're right in the mix of, there's a lot of teams that are 2-2. My brother's 2-2, but he's got the tiebreakers right now, and he's in the last playoff spot. You're 2-2. You were in a big game last week against Andrew against a battle of 1-2s. This week you play my cousin Jack. He's also 2-2. Big game for you. Another huge game. You've had Charlie Blackmon had 97 points in the season. He's been killing it for your team. What do you expect out of your team this week against Jack in week 5?
I mean, I've got a lot of hope for my team. I made a lot of pickups this morning. I know I've already used 3 of my 7 picks for the week. So, I mean, got to be careful for the rest of the week of who I'm going to pick up and whatnot. But, I'm feeling pretty happy with my team. It sucks that injuries have affected us. And you said it, Charlie Blackmon, he's been doing great this season. He's not hitting the home runs like Jose is, but, he still has an average of 405 on the season.
Yeah.
So he's definitely very consistent, happy with everything that we're doing.
Is there one guy on your team you'd like to see step up?
Honestly, right now I have one bench player that I've been keeping, and so I've been happy with all of our – we did have some issues with catchers in the beginning of the season. I've gone through a few of them. But at the point where I'm at right now, I'm real happy with the team that I got, real solid. Just hopefully that injuries don't, hurt us anymore.
And I think I said it way back when you drafted. I actually like the way you drafted. I really did like your team. I like your team going for the season, and you're starting to come around a little bit. And you got a big game this week. 3 weeks left. What are your chances at the playoffs being one of those Final Four teams?
Well, it really sucks that we do have a shortened season here. If we had a full season, I'm 100% confident that I would be able to make my first playoff berth in the JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball League. But even with where I am right now, sitting at 2-2, I'm still pretty confident that I'll be able to make my first playoff berth in the league. I've done twice now. I've been in the top 3 of scoring, and just got to keep building off of that and hope I can bring my Houston Asterisks to the playoffs.
I do like that team name, Houston Asterisks. And my friend Paul, he's the one that has Altuve's tattoo. So not a lot of Houston fans in this group. And who's your favorite MLB team, by the way?
I'm not really. I don't have one team that I pay attention to. That's what I love about fantasy sports. Is it makes every single game you watch exciting, whether you have a player on that team or you're watching, your opponent's players and you're hoping either they do bad or my player's doing good. It just makes the game so much more exciting in fantasy.
I know. I was just wondering because we have a bunch of New York Yankee fans, and I was just wondering if you were one or not. But tons of Yankee fans in this league. Mm-hmm. But we talk about baseball, and then there was basketball, fantasy basketball, and you were one of those 4 teams in the
Yep.
semifinals before the pandemic shut it all down. Months later, you were actually in the semifinals playing against my cousin Kyle's team, and a lot of people thought that team was the favorite to win the league.
Mm-hmm.
And you were actually up 61 points with just 4 days to go in that semifinals. First, what's just your thoughts remembering that season did not finish?
I mean, my first thoughts is I can still remember that night when I got the news that the Utah Jazz players were starting to test positive and the NBA was getting shut down. Like you said, I was up 61 points on Kyle. Super happy with the way my team was playing. I was second in scoring championship that year.
Yep.
Big help, of course, from James Harden, of course.
Yes.
But I was super happy with my team. Made my second straight playoff appearance out of 2 seasons I've been in with JERRY1 Fantasy Basketball. And it just sucks that after getting my first ever win in the basketball playoffs to go up 61 and just have it all ended right there. Thought my team had a lot of potential this year. Like I said, we were second in the scoring championship. Thought we were able to make it a little farther, but unfortunately weren't.
You were the 6th seed, but you would, like you said, you were second in scoring, so you were a dangerous 6th seed, and you proved in that 1st round, and you proved in the semifinals, and it just sucks that didn't finish because, I hate seeing it not finish because I want to see
I
who
know.
win. But
at least, we had to go through those few months of absolutely nothing. Finally, now we got baseball going on. Basketball's on right now. It's just everything. Solely football will be here.
yeah,
Finally, life's getting back to normal.
and you're in our, even though it's not JERRY1, you're in our Cuban College Fantasy Football League. Entry fees up to $30. It looks like now this year, so the stakes.
Is that what we're gonna do this year?
Hey, you like your chances, Cuban College Fantasy Football?
I always like my chances in fantasy football. That's probably the one that I take the most serious. I start studying, all summer long, getting ready. Um, I know I got our draft next Sunday. Super excited for it. I got a draft that morning with my work.
Oh, really?
And just
Yeah.
preparing and hopefully, finally get a win.
Now I see that's a Donovan McNabb jersey behind you. Is that Brian
Got
Westbrook?
the McNabb, got the Westbrook over here. Got all the
Yeah.
classic.
Eagles Rockets fan. How did that come across?
I've always been an Eagles fan since I was in 4th grade. I remember watching them when they were in the playoffs with the Patriots, which they did lose that year. I mean, ever since then, it just stuck. I was an Eagles fan. I mean, McNabb was playing that game. Westbrook was there, all my favorite players, and it just stuck. And then with the Rockets, from the time I started watching basketball, that was back when we had Yao Ming, Tracy McGrady, Luis Scola, Shane Battier. But Yao Ming, he was my player. That's what made me a Rockets fan. I was
And
actually kind of disappointed. It was my birthday, the day he retired.
Yao Ming.
Yep, he was my favorite player. That's what made me actually a Rockets fan.
Very nice. And I appreciate you coming on. It's not the end of the podcast. I appreciate you coming on, even though just like, because we're shooting this on Monday, Rockets literally just blew another game to the Thunder. They now tied 2-2 literally a half hour ago. It's tough, but I still like the Rockets' chances. I know you do too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're going to come back against the Thunder because they need to beat the Lakers.
I mean, it was a good thing we did this podcast now because about an hour ago I was going nuts watching that league be blue.
Yeah. And so, you played fantasy basketball, you played fantasy baseball. Is there one you prefer more? I know they're kind of the same. They're both daily fantasies. Do you like one better?
Definitely fantasy basketball. That's my favorite. I love baseball too. I just love because football is great, but I just love how fantasy baseball and basketball, it's a daily thing. I mean, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, I check my team, see how we did that night, and start preparing. Who do I got to pick up for today? Who do I got pitching today? Or who do I got playing in NBA? But basketball, that's definitely my favorite to play.
All right. Yeah. So any guest that comes on here, I don't know if you've seen the episodes, but we play my game. How well do you know your fantasy teams? Your JERRY1 fantasy teams. There's 5 questions, 10 points, 20 points, 30 points, 40 points, 50 points. The most you get is 150 points. Right now, the top score, if I can remember, I think it's 100 between Nate and Blake. I think they both got 100 points. That's what you're going for.
Okay.
That's what you got to beat. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so it goes easier to harder. 10 points. Have you ever missed a JERRY1 fantasy basketball playoffs? Yes or no?
No, not since I've been in the league.
That is correct. 10 points. You're on the board. Question number 2. Who did you select first overall in the 2019 JERRY1 fantasy baseball draft?
Oh,
Last year. You had the first overall
I think
pick.
Mike Trout, didn't I?
Mike Trout?
Mike Trout.
That is correct. Mike
Knew it.
Trout. You selected him number 1 overall. You're up to 30 points. Solid start. Let's see if you can double your points right here. 30 points. Who did you lose to in the JERRY1 fantasy basketball 2018-2019 first round, last year's playoffs?
I got two people I'm thinking.
Okay.
I feel like it's either got to be your brother or Sam, just because I know for JERRY1 I'm 0-6 against him. For some reason, I cannot beat him.
Yeah, he's good. But
I think I'm gonna go with your brother Matt.
you're going with Matt. That is incorrect. It was me.
Oh, wrong Felice.
Yeah, I tried to, I just wanted to throw that in there, all right?
Yeah.
And not to mention that I went on to win the championship that year.
Yep.
But no worries. Here we go. You can still get the top score. 40 points.
We got this.
Okay, they're starting to get hard. How many games back? So 2019 JERRY1 fantasy baseball last year. Blake was the number 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
You missed the playoffs. How many games back were you of Blake for that number 1 spot?
I'm gonna say 6 games.
That is correct. 6 games. Wow. Yes. Yeah. Blake was 13-5. You were 7-11. 6 games.
I had a little bit of a struggle. It was my first ever time playing fantasy baseball. I had a little learning. I know it was Blake's first time too.
Yeah, it was definitely Blake's. It was definitely Blake's first time. Yeah. All right, so that is 70 points. This is for 120 points right here. Final question and the top 4. Okay, this one's going to take a little bit of time maybe. How many career wins in JERRY1 fantasy sports, basketball and baseball, do you have against Cuca owners? So that is me, Blake, Josh, Tom, and Ron. How many wins? You did not play Q or Nate yet. They're playing just hockey right now. But how many career wins? All I'm looking is for the amount of wins against me, Blake, Josh, Tom, and Ron.
I know I got 2 on Ron. Josh, gonna say probably 2. So you said Blake,
Me and Tom.
you and Tom.
This is a tough one.
So I'm gonna go with 8.
It is incorrect. It is here's what I'll do. It is 7 wins.
I was close.
But I will give you partial credit because you did have 2 wins against Ron and you did have 2 wins against Josh, and you said that. The others were 1 win against Tom, 1 win against Blake, and 1 win against me. Partial credit, I'll give you 25 points, and that puts you 95 points, which is just below him, but that's not bad. 95 points. Nicely done, Larry.
Thank you.
Yeah. The last thing I want to get on you is so you're in your 4th season, JERRY1 fantasy sports. You haven't won a championship yet, but you've made a little bit of a run in basketball, and you might have won it there. But what would it mean for you to win a championship?
I mean, I'm 4 seasons in. I'm hoping that it's coming soon. Doesn't matter if any championship I win. I don't care if it's the Cuca League, if it's JERRY1, any fantasy championship I'm happy with. Like I said, I always check my team every single morning, making sure everything's set. All the work I put in, it'd mean a lot to me to finally get my first championship in JERRY1.
Yes, and I think I don't know when it's going to happen. It might be this year. It might be Fantasy Baseball 2020. But I think it will happen sooner than later for you, Larry. And I wish the best of luck for you the rest of the way in JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball this year, because basketball should be right around the corner too. Who knows when that will start?
Yeah.
But yeah, Larry, thanks for coming on and saying a few things about your team, and I wish the best of luck for you down the road.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. Really enjoyed being here. See ya.
I want to thank Larry for coming on. It was good to talk to him, good to catch up with him since he's moved down south to South Carolina. A little jealous. You know, it's kind of weird because JERRY1, man, you don't really think about it, but we're all over the map, man. We got Andrew out in China. We got Sam out in California. We got Larry in South Carolina. We just talked to Blake last show down in Florida. We're all over the place, man. JERRY1, you know, it's nationwide. It's worldwide. So I'm glad to see it. You know, spread the word. Come on, we gotta be better in Barstool here. But let's talk a little bit about Week 5, JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball. The game of the week this week, Clarkson University, the big rivalry. I call it the old-fashioned Clarkson University rivalry. 2-2 Sam versus 2-2 Matt. A lot on the line here. You don't want to fall to 2-3 with 2 weeks to go in the regular season. I don't know who I like here. The Sam team has been struggling, but if there was any week for him to bounce back, it's against Matt, because Matt is very unlucky sometimes in the JERRY1 stage. I'm really intrigued to see how this matchup plays out. I wish the best for both these teams going forward. But next game I got on my list here is 4-0 Paul versus 3-1 myself. And this is a JERRY1 classic right here. Paul beats up almost every owner in JERRY1. There's some that he, barely plays. He's lost a couple here and there. But me, he can't beat me. Some reason, fantasy football, it doesn't matter which one it is. Some reason I got his number regular season-wise. He's got me playoffs. I've never been in playoffs, I think, 3 times. We haven't played in a while in the playoffs, but he's got me playoff number. But I have him regular season, and this would be a great time to beat him. This would be a great week for me to win. But Paul, if he goes to 5-0, watch out how far this team could go. He would not technically clinch a playoff berth to win. There's tiebreakers and stuff, but Paul, a win basically puts him in. Another 3-1 team, Johnny Marino, taking on the 1-3 Fletch team. Do not sleep on this Fletch team. I told you, this Fletch team's been hot. Even though he choked it the weekend against Jack. He's playing the other cousin now in Johnny this week. Johnny, he's kind of just hanging there, but he's a good team too. So he's 3-1. Fletch is 1-3. Fletch trying to play some spoiler this week. Fletch trying to hang around. Once you get to the 4th game, that means you're under 500 for the season, the shortened season. We'll see what happens here. Larry, our guest today, he's 2-2, taking on Jack, 2-2. Matt and Sam's a 2-2 matchup. Larry and Jack is a 2-2 matchup. You don't want to fall to 2-3. I like Larry's chances here. Don't know what to think about this Jack team yet. Both these teams came back to beat JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball newbies last week by 14 points exact on Sunday. Now Larry and Jack play each other. Winner gets to 3-2. Winner is right there with 2 weeks to go. So 1-3 Josh. 1-3 Josh taking on 2-2 Kurt. Kurt has been hot with that new stud lineup he has after a couple trades. We'll see if anyone else makes some trades. It's worked for Kurt. Maybe Josh is one of those teams that makes a trade. 1-3 versus 2-2 Kurt. You would love to see a win for Josh here, but the way things have been turned out for Josh and JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball, not very good. Even though this is a short season, Josh still has not won a game on the second half of a JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball schedule yet. And the last game of the week, 1-3 Blake versus 1-3 Andrew. Winner gets to 2-3. Loser, get them out of here. They're gone. This is a big game for these two teams. Don't worry about what else is happening in the league. Blake and Andrew just need to win now. And that's it. That's week 5. And 2 weeks after this is until the playoffs. So big week 5 ahead of us here in JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball. Fantasy football starts 2 weeks from this Thursday. First game. Our draft is unofficially scheduled right now for Monday, September 7th at 9 p.m., 9 a.m. China time. So, Andrew, look out for that. And I just want to give out a JERRY1 belated birthday. Blake Crawford's birthday was last Saturday, August 22nd. Happy birthday, Blake. Thanks for coming on last show. And happy birthday, Blake. And thanks, Larry, for coming on. So, we don't know who's on the show next week, but we do know this was a really good show. Episode 6 is in the books, baby. Thank you, Larry, for coming on. It was good to talk to you, good to catch up with you. That's it for JERRY1 Podcast, episode number 6. JERRY1 Fantasy Baseball Week 5 in the books. JERRY1 Fantasy Football on its way. JERRY1 Fantasy Hockey and Basketball, if you're wondering if that was coming on the show. I don't know when that's coming back, so hopefully December. But I don't know. That's it for episode 6. We'll see you next time.